friends, I'm Rosa. Welcome to the channel. So, I'm actually really impressed with myself that I'm recording this wrap up on the 1st of November because usually I'm a little bit behind when it comes to my reading wrap ups. Don't know what it is. I just am not good at sitting down on the 1st and actually talking about everything that I've read throughout the last month, but for once I'm on time. So, we got 11 books to go through. One I forgot to include in my last wrap up. I don't know how I did that. It just happened. But it's okay because it's actually the first in a trilogy and I've read the sequel during this month. So those two will be combined, if you will, anyway. But I also will say, I did not really manage to read a lot of the books on my October TBR, and I will explain why. Because I did a dum-dum. We should not be surprised by this. I do dum-dums all the time. However, the thing is, I had a little bit of help with NetGalley and figuring out how to request arcs and such. And so at the start of the month or late last month or something, I started requesting, I don't know if maybe it was like 30 or 40 different arcs on NetGalley, just thinking, well, they're all gonna decline me anyway, right? Because like, why would they approve of my requests? Because why? And then 16 of them did. So I've read 6 of them. So we're gonna talk about those 6 today. But I'm sitting on another 10 that I gotta read through. I was really surprised when I woke up the next day, like, what the heck? So I did a dum-dum. Can't recommend just going request a crazy on NetGalley because you might be surprised. But yeah, so we have some arcs to talk about. We'll have some arcs to talk about next month and probably in December too. But I tried to read the ones that are at least out here in November or that have already been released throughout October, so just to make sure. But anyway, so that means I ended up reading 4 physical books. We got those here, and also 7 books on my Kindle. Some of those are arcs. 2 of them are not, I think. We'll see. I can't keep track of it. It's fine. And I think I managed to read about 4,200 pages total, something like that. So overall it's been a good reading month despite me actually being in Rome for a week and not really having a lot of time to read while in Rome. But while in Rome. Okay, anyway, let's get started. So first off, we're talking about my book club's primary pick. If you want to check out the book club, there's a link to it in the pinned comment, also in the description box. We do monthly buddy reads and the book club gets to pick which one we're reading, and I'm covering it in a spoilery vlog. So the one that we did read in October was Nettle Bone by T. Kingfisher, which is an adult horror fantasy, or an adult fantasy horror, in which we follow a girl who is actually a princess but has been sent off to this like nunnery covenant. Is that what it's called? Covenant? I'm gonna go with covenant. If it has something to do with witches, just disregard me. But anyway. She lives as a nun, though. So she had an older sister who was married off to a prince in like another kingdom. They have this very powerful big kingdom, so to assure that there's peace between the two kingdoms, our lead girl's parents married off the oldest daughter. However, she died. And so to assure that there's peace between the two kingdoms again, they married off the middle daughter, who's now continuously staying pregnant because the prince, king, whatever we want to call him, is not treating her well, and the only way that she can get him to stop is to stay pregnant. So our lead girl sets out on a mission. She wants to kill the prince, and to do this, she needs the help from a group of very interesting characters. So we have a dust wife, also known as a grave witch. She can talk to spirits. There's a fairy godmother who is a little bit of a different kind of fairy godmother. There's a bone dog as well. Yes, literally a dog made out of bones. There's a knight. Is he a knight? A soldier. He's a soldier who's kind of fallen from grace, if you will, and there's also a chicken that is possessed by a demon. And so the book is about them figuring out how to get to the prince and how to kill him, essentially. It had massive dark fairy tale vibes to it. I thought it was very funny as well. Was it super horror-ish? No. But I enjoyed the writing in this. I thought it was comical. I thought it was fun. I thought it was charming at times. I was just expecting a little bit more horror, I will say. My favorite characters ended up being the 2 witches, the grave witch, dust wife, and also the fairy godmother, who I would consider a witch. Or at least like that's her role because she does magic. They just had this sort of funny grumpy sunshine chemistry and I thought it was so funny, especially the fairy godmother. She was hilarious. Oh, there's also a little bit of a romance in this, which kind of took me by surprise. I didn't mind it. I just wasn't expecting it, I suppose. But as soon as the character was introduced, I was like, okay, this is probably gonna happen. So didn't mind it too much, but yeah, a few horror things here and there, but nothing like overly scary. I'm not gonna add examples, but I'm sure that there's a trigger list out there if you need one. So overall, it was a pretty funny read. If you want to hear more about it, you can do that in the spoilery vlog that is up on Patreon. But now we're moving on to the secondary pick for the book club, which was Finlay Donovan is Killing It by Il Cosimano. And this is an adult mystery, thriller, contemporary, and also with just like a dash of romance. In this we follow Finlay Donovan, who is a single mom, and she is having a hard time. She has 2 kids, and they're both a little bit chaotic. They don't really do what she says. One of them is a toddler, so like there's a lot going on at that age. The other one is 4 years old and does not listen to Finlay at all. And so Finlay has a hard time also sitting down to actually do her job. Her job is that she's a writer. She writes mystery novels or like murder mysteries. But everything around Finlay has kind of just fallen apart lately, including her marriage. So one day though, Finlay is supposed to be meeting up with her agent at a cafe to talk about the plot of the next book, which she does not have prepared at all. So she shows up there and they're talking about her previous book actually, just like talking about the plot and everything. Obviously keep in mind that she writes murder mysteries, so like there's a lot of like murder talk involved in this. And so while she's talking about the plot, a disgruntled wife at the table next to Finlay and her agent overhears it and jumps to the conclusion that Finlay is a hit woman. And so after Finlay has had this talk with her agent, she notices that she's gotten a letter from, or like a note from this person, basically telling her to kill her husband for some money, and Finlay could really use that money, so she considers it, and that's where I'm gonna leave it. But this was chaotic and fun. I had a really good time with this. I read this so quickly as well because I think it's easy to breeze through. There's a lot of twists and turns, some charming characters, a lot of humor in this. I thought it was great. I actually ordered the sequel right after I finished this, so I'm looking forward to, what's it called? Finlay Donovan Knocks Them Dead or something like that. I don't know when I'll be here. Probably within the next 2 months. So I'm looking forward to it though. I don't often read murder mysteries, but I thought this was like, it was a good mix of murder mystery with romance as well. It's just like a little bit. There was a little bit of a love triangle, but not really. And I very much appreciated that it was not really a love triangle because I cannot stand those. We'll talk about that later in this video, unfortunately. But it felt like it just had like a nice balance. Especially between the murder mystery plot and also the humor. I thought it was good. I need more of this. This was great. So thank you for choosing that, book club members. I had a great time with it. I love how these 2 books are almost the same size, despite it being a hardback and the other one being a paperback. I don't know. And then yesterday I finished Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas, which is a young adult fantasy with romance. Am I missing something? I don't think so. I was like, is it supposed to be horror? Because it does have spooky vibes, but I think that's mainly because it's set in October and we're spending a lot of time in a graveyard. Like it wasn't really scary, so I'm still searching for that one book that'll scare me. Maybe the one that I'm reading right now will do the job, but so far nothing has really got me there, so. But in this one, we follow Yadriel, who is this dude, and also Julian. And also, Yadriel's, I think it's his cousin, Maritza? I can't pronounce the names, by the way. I never had Spanish in school, but I still understood a lot of the things that they said in this book, which was funny. I had French, so they're both rooted in Latin, which definitely helps. But I think, yeah, her name is Maritza. Yadriel is an important note. He's trans, so the way that the magic works within the bruja, or the brujex, I think they call them, is that women do magic one way and men do magic in a different way. So women can do like healing stuff. Maritza has that power. And men can summon spirits and they're supposed to like help them move on, pass on to whatever comes after being a spirit. So like when you die, you turn into a spirit. When you're a spirit, you have to move on. Or at least in some cases, you turn into a spirit. I'm sure some just move on. But anyway, since Yatriel is trans and his family is not really that great at all at accepting that he's trans, he really wants to prove to them that he's a brujo instead of a bruja. And so one night when his cousin Miguel mysteriously goes missing, like they can all feel that Miguel dies, but no one can find his body. He takes it upon himself, him and Maritza, to summon Miguel so that he can prove to them that he is actually a brujo. So he can show to his family that he has the same powers as the brujo. But he ends up not summoning Miguel, he ends up summoning Julian instead, and Julian is not a very compliable, is that a word? I'm really struggling with English today, obviously, and Spanish. He doesn't really do what he's told. He's not good at following directions. Do you get what I mean? So they both have, our little duo, have to convince Julian that he actually has to do what they say. Meanwhile, there are some feelings brewing in all of this as well, and obviously Julian is also here on borrowed time because he's a spirit. Spirits have to pass over, otherwise they will go bad. I'm not gonna try to pronounce that word. It's spelled maligno, but I don't know how to pronounce it. And so Gadriel and Julian decide to try to work together, both to help out Gadriel with this Miguel stuff, but also so Julian can tie up some loose ends before he's passing over. And that's Cemetery Boys. I really loved this. I think I drew some connections with, or like some comparisons with this to They Both Die at the End, because we have two boys that are kind of like, there's a deadline, if you get what I mean. Like, Julian can't stay around forever. I think this takes place over like 3 days instead of They Both Die at the End, which is just one. One of the issues with They Both Die at the End was that it was just 1 day. Like, there wasn't enough time for things to develop the way that they needed to. Whereas in this, it was nice with the romance. It started a little bit earlier with some like butterflies and stuff. And we also had some extra days to make everything build a little bit more organically. And so I just feel like this managed to do something that that book didn't do for me, and I really liked it. I thought it had beautiful messages in it as well. It was just very, very lovable. Love the characters as well. I loved learning a little bit about this culture too, because it's not one that I'm exposed to a lot, so I don't really get to know much about it. Learning a few things about Lady Death as well, like, I don't know, it's very interesting, very educational, very touching as well. Really adored this. I had to get started a little bit because the first 2 chapters didn't really catch me, but then when I got to chapter 4 or something, I was like hooked and basically read it so quickly. So this was really, really good. We'll definitely be keeping an eye on Aiden Thomas's next books. I know there's the Sunbearer Trials, which was out recently. I wanted to pre-order it, and then for some reason I didn't. And now I'm like, why didn't you do it? This is why you should all just pre-order all the books, you know? But I didn't do it, so unfortunately for me, I don't have it. But yeah, it was really good. Thank you for, I think this was recommended to me as well a while ago, so thank you for doing that. Thank you for recommending it to me. Now we're gonna talk about the first arc that I read, and it was actually one that I really, really was looking forward to. I was very happy when I saw that they approved me for this one, even though I'd already pre-ordered it. And it is A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson, which is an adult fantasy. Would you call this romance? I mean, yeah, having a hard time calling it romance, but that's because it's about abuse, or it's about an abusive relationship. So we follow, it's basically a retelling of the wives of Count Dracula. I think that's what it's called. Like, if that's not exactly the name of the stories, or if they even have a name, it's a retelling of, like, you know, that situation with Dracula and his wives. Yes, okay. But it's told from the first wife's point of view. And so it's about the two and more joining this relationship, if you will, throughout the years, throughout centuries, and also them traveling around, seeing how he's never actually named Dracula in the book. Like, his name never comes up. He's always just he or you. No, he's always you. No, you and he. Mainly you. Like, it's written in you. So that's mainly what it's about. Like, seeing or hearing a lot of her thoughts about this relationship, and her explaining quite clearly how abusive it is in very, I don't want to call it interesting ways, subtle but also not so subtle ways, and just seeing her grow as well as a character from being this like worshipping him basically, but then becoming more and more independent and stronger and like feeling like now is enough, you know? And so I thought this was beautiful, but at the same time it was also terrifying. It was very uncomfortable, but I think it just had like a nice contrast between this very flowy and beautiful language and then the content of it was so terrible. Not as in like the book was terrible. I love the book. This is very close to a 5 stars for me. It's just there was so much not like full on, well, sort of full on tragedy. There was a lot of, it was just so sad. It was so sad. I can't really fully explain it. It's a very different book. I hope this reaches more people than it has reached. But definitely look up on triggers because yes, do. I really want to reread this at some point because I feel like it deserves a reread as well. I just really loved it. I don't know why mine has sprayed edges. I can't figure it out. But it does and I'm not complaining. My stomach literally twisted at certain points in this, especially when like, it's not a spoiler saying that there's gonna be more people in the relationship, but when he started introducing the second one, I was just like, cause infidelity, I can't. People cheating, I can't. No. Like, it's so easy to just not cheat. So, like, I have a very hard time, especially when you're inside this woman's head and she's describing how much she loves this person and suddenly there's another person being introduced to it and she's not on board with that. Like, oh, it hurts so much. That's about as specific regarding the plot that I'm going to be, but it's not really a spoiler that there's going to be more people in this relationship because it is a retelling of his wives. So, but yeah, love this, would highly recommend it. Just make sure you look up on some trigger warnings as well because it can be heavy at times. So, yeah. But beautiful. Beautiful and absolutely horrifying. But not horror though. I mean, is it horror? I don't know, it wasn't scary like that. I don't know what horror is. And so we're gonna talk about some more of the arcs that I read. The rest of the books I don't have as physical copies, so I'm gonna miss something to hold in my hand while I'm talking, but I'm gonna do my best. So I read The Spare Man by, oh my gosh, she has a very long name, Mary Robinette Kowal? I'm not sure. This is a murder mystery, but it's set in space, so it's a sci-fi as well. We follow a famous inventor and her new husband that are on a honeymoon, and she's, when I say that she's famous, she's like insanely famous and also rich. She has all the money. She's very insanely rich. It's brought up a lot. But because she's famous and she's on a space, like they went to this honeymoon or on this honeymoon on a spaceship traveling between 2 planets or something. So they're kind of stuck on this spaceship, yeah. Among other people as well. There's lots of people and there's a lot of things to do at the spaceship or on the spaceship as well. But to make sure that nobody can recognize her, she's wearing a wig and she's just, you know, disguised and everything. But then one day, at the very start of the book, someone dies. Someone's killed and her husband is actually arrested for the murder. But our lead woman is not having that because she knows that her husband wouldn't do something like this. So she sets out in her own very unique and quirky way to basically prove that he's innocent. What are you doing? You're dumb. Stop arresting my husband. Oh, and she also has a dog. A service dog who's so cute. His name is Grimlet. Or is it a she? I think it's a he. It might be a she, but it also might be a he. I can't remember, but the dog is adorable. So I thought this book was, again, I'm not really used to murder mysteries. I thought it was very fun. I think I kind of vibe with the humorous murder mysteries a little bit more than the ones that are just very serious. That said, I don't recall ever reading a murder mystery that was very serious, but I think I'd be missing the humor part. If I read one right now, I'd be like, why are they not cracking jokes? Like, this should be a funny situation. A murder happened. Hilarious. But I thought the humor in this was great. I enjoyed it a lot. It had a lot of, like, because it's set in space, it's very, like, or not set in, because it's set in space, but it's set in the future. Despite it actually being set in the future, it has sort of like a film noir kind of vibe to it, which I thought was very interesting, the two contrasts. because it's just, I don't know, the style and the vibe, and they were drinking a lot of cocktails and such, just felt very film noir, but it's set in space. There's suddenly these like inventions that you just would never come across in real life, as it is right now at least. So I thought that was a very cool contrast and a very cool vibe as well. But also because it's set in the future, we do have like a focus of the book was, or not a focus because it's not a part of the story, but something that was actually not explained. You just kind of had to figure it out yourself now that I think about it. But people aren't called Mr. and Ms. anymore. They're called MX, for example, which I thought was kind of cool. They also don't call each other husband and wives. I'm sorry, I should have called him spouse, because that's what they call him in the book. Spouse, not husband. Or I think she might call him husband now and then. I can't remember, but I thought that was fun. Like, everything is just a little bit more neutral, if you get what I mean. Our lead woman also has a spinal injury that is mentioned quite a lot as well. She has like an invention going on to help her with that, and that's also why she has a service dog. Also because she has PTSD. I'm not gonna tell you why, but she's been through some stuff. So those were like added things to it as well that I thought was actually a little bit nice to see as well. But overall, I thought it was charming. I thought it was funny. There was a little bit of repetitiveness. I'm pretty sure I just completely repetitiveness. How did I say that? I'm not, anyway. But it wasn't too bad. It's also not the longest book, so, but the twists and the turns were great. I thought the murder mystery in itself was fun. Just a lot of names you gotta keep track of, but and some of them might have double names. No, I don't know. I don't actually remember. They might, because I don't remember. Just kind of a lot of characters to keep track of as well, so if you decide to go into it, definitely do your best to remember them, but I failed sometimes. Like, I'm gonna just be honest, I failed sometimes. I had a good time with the book though, would recommend it. I thought it was fun. Also, murder mystery set in space. Haven't come across one of those, so I thought that was interesting as well. Then we have Realm of Lore and Lies by Claire Wright, and this is a contemporary fantasy. I'm unsure if it's supposed to be new adult or adult, because I don't really know. I think it's supposed to be adult, but language-wise, definitely reads more as new adult. Also, just with the world and everything, I don't know, I'm getting new adult vibes from it. And we also have to do with, it's a bit of a mystery book, but there's also fae in it. So, and it's set in Ireland. I should say that. That's important. An important fact. It's set in Ireland, so when I say fae, I don't mean like the pretty, gorgeous, alluring ones. I mean the evil will kill you kind of ones. They're called the fair ones. So as far as I remember, I don't remember the name of the group, but essentially there's like a group of travelers, sort of. They do like shows and stuff to get by, earn money, and make a living. And they are in Irish lore, I guess you could call it. Is that the right term for that? They're supposed to be the ones that protect us humans from the fae, or the fair ones. So we follow 4 different characters. One is, I would probably say one of them is a little bit more of a lead character than the other ones. Her mom just died, and she's really set on, she's also not been living with this group for a long time. She's just kind of been gone from them, living with some other people. I forgot who they are to her, but because her mom died, or was killed actually, she goes back to the group, and as it turns out as well, because her mother used to lead one of the clans, she's supposed to take over for her mom with leading, which she's not been with the clan for a long time, so that's a bit of an adjustment. Then we follow a guy who is in the clan that our lead girl is now going to lead, and he's like a hacker kind of type. And we also follow a pair of twins that are in not a rivaling clan, but kind of a rivaling clan. There's a little bit of a competition going on. See, I'm having issues kind of summarizing this book now that I think about it. It was also a very thick book. It's like 500 pages. There was a lot going on, but at the same time, pacing wise, it felt weird, so I'm just having a little bit of a hard time summarizing it, I'm not gonna lie. But these clans essentially have to prepare themselves for this sort of competition because there's a king in another realm who's basically like hiring for his guards. So they're in this competition to make sure that they get hired by the king. It's a great honor to be hired by the king. But there's also the murder mystery going on. And there's also some other mystery going on. It's a bit hard to explain. I feel like this book wanted to do a lot, but I think that's like the main gist of it basically. So I checked up on my notes, and the travelers are called Fianna, so it has to do with them and also the fair ones. And there's this realm that's called Tirnanok, which is very much the wrong way to pronounce it, but I don't know how to pronounce it, so I'm doing my best here, okay? I'm doing my best. It seemed very well researched by Claire Wright, but I think as for like the content, I think there was just something odd about the pacing. Like it fell off from 15% into the book until like 75% or something. And then all of a sudden it just picked up and stuff started happening. I also think a part of the reason that I'm having a very hard time summarizing it is because we're following 4 different POVs, but if I'm being completely honest, I feel like that's at least too many. It could easily have been written from one point of view. I don't think it necessarily did the book any good for there to be 4 points of views. And then there was also a little bit of an insta-love situation, which I don't have a good time with, so that kind of did also affect my feelings regarding the book. I don't know. Insta-love, like love triangles can be written in a way that I'm okay with, but insta-love is just an instant no-no for me. And so, yeah. I did have to fight my way through some of the book. I'm glad I got to the end of it, but it does also end on a cliffhanger. I don't know when the sequel is out, so something to keep in mind. But if you are looking for something like researched Irish with fae that are not like Ekotar faes, for example, not that we don't love those, but that are just like different faes than a lot of the ones that we come across in other books these days, check it out, feel free to. You might have a different experience with it than I did, but yeah, overall just kind of fought my way through it a little bit at certain points in the book. Then I read 2 books that aren't arcs actually, and that is, what's it called? Song of the Forever Rains? Yes, Song of the Forever Rains, and also Dance of the Burning Sea, which is the first and the second book in the Mousai trilogy. The 3rd one is coming out next year. January or March, I can't remember, one of the 2. But in these books we follow 3 sisters. In the first one we follow the youngest. She has the power to basically, like, her song is magic. I think that's the best way I can describe it. She can do several things with her song. So that book is about her basically being sent off to this very creepy man who's doing some creepy things, and she has to live at this creepy castle. Meanwhile, she's also kind of crushing a little bit on the creepy man's not so creepy stepson? Yes. Oh, she's supposed to be married. Did I say that? She's supposed to get married to the creepy man. That's why she's there. I'm not sure that I said that, but that's an important point as well. And some weird things are happening at this castle. Like, things are just off. So she has to go there to figure out what the heck is going on. And meanwhile, you know, there's a stepson. So a little bit of a romance brewing. And then in the sequel, we follow the middle sister her dance is magical. She's very seductive. Yes, but she also has rage issues, kind of. And she loves to gamble. Not like full-on gamble, but she likes to make bets. She also has a funny relationship to this pirate man who is a bit of a smartass, if I may say so. But she basically ends up being kidnapped, I think, or taken by him and his crew, and then ends up making a bet with him. The bet is basically like, if my sisters come here, something, but if they don't, I'll stay in your service for a year. And so what happens? Anyway, there's a lot going on with that one. I like the sequel a lot better than the first one. I don't really know how much more I can say about the second one. Just know that it's enemies to lovers. There's pirate king man. He's not a pirate king. We're going to talk about a pirate king later in this video. I don't know why I said pirate king. He's a pirate man. Where was I before I started talking about pirate kings? I lost my train of thought completely. Anyway, I like the sequel a little bit better than the first one. Although I don't know, I just think it's because there was an enemies to lovers situation. Like, I'm biased, okay? I have issues apparently, and I'm not ready to confront myself with it, so we're just gonna take it for what it is. The sequel is superior to the first one. That's just how it is. Like, they're very cute in the first book, that relationship. The story does have some mystery to it, but I think for me, The sequel is just a little bit more of an adventure because they're out on the water and we're introduced to new areas, and I don't know, the chemistry between the two characters, it's a bit more of a slow burn as well, but it's just good. Like, it's very hot and cold, which fits with the characters very well. I won't get into why. If you read the book, you will know. That said though, the sequel was a fair bit longer than the first one, and I felt like it wasn't really necessary to make it that much longer. There's kind of a lot of flashbacks as well because the two characters, I forgot their names, but our lead girl and also the pirate man, they have some history that's explained several times, and there's a couple of other flashbacks, and I felt like some of the flashbacks maybe were a little bit unnecessary. So it felt a little bit long drawn at times, but I still enjoyed it a lot more than the first one, or just not necessarily a lot more, just a little bit more. And I'm very much looking forward to going into the third one, which I can't remember what it's called. Sympathy for a Deadly Throne? Am I? Just off the top of my head. Something with sympathy? Symphony. Yes, Symphony for a Deadly Throne. So I will say these are companion novels. You don't necessarily have to read 1, 2, and then 3. Not necessarily, but it's highly recommended that you do because there are certain things that are referred to in the sequel that happen in the first one, but I don't think you'd be confused if you just skip the first one. Don't skip the first one though. It was great. Did I say it's the Mousai trilogy? I think I might have forgotten. But anyway, really enjoyed those books. Can definitely recommend if you're looking for slightly new adult. Not smutty though. Just want to clarify, not smutty. Fantasy and also romance because they were great for that. So yeah. So I got 3 more books. We're gonna talk about Daughter of the Pirate King next by Trisha Levenseller. This has been out for a while, but I did get an ARC for it because I think it's recently released in the UK as paperback. So I'm really happy that I got to read it. So I have read The Shadows Between Us by Trisha Levenseller. I read it last year and I don't really want to talk about it. I was so frustrated with myself as well reading that book because I'd seen other people were very much enjoying it, and I don't know, maybe it just didn't hit the mood, or maybe I just didn't get the point of it, but I didn't get it. I didn't like it. So that was the thing. I still own it. It's still on my shelves somewhere over here, but I don't know, I haven't revisited it since last year. And so I was a little bit nervous going into this one, but I wanted to keep an open mind. Like, you can't judge an author's works just by one book, by reading one book. So I went into this and I'm actually really, really happy that I did because I loved it. I thought it was like great. Just great, funny, fast-paced YA. It's fantasy. We follow a very headstrong lead girl, who's very independent as well. She's very stubborn, she's very strong, and she is... how much can I say about her? She's the daughter of the Pirate King. So the Pirate King, basically, he has a lot of power. Obviously, he's the king, so he has a lot of power in the waters. But being the daughter of the Pirate King, despite him having so much power, is not super easy. Alosa, our lead girl, is sometimes she goes on jobs for her father, and one of those jobs is that she has to let herself get captured by this ship. So she does, because she wants her hands on something that they have on this ship. The best way to get on the ship is by getting captured, and so that's what she does. Unfortunately, things don't necessarily go the exact way that Alosa wants, because on the ship there's a pretty charming first mate. So he's not the captain, but he's actually the captain's brother. The captain sucks, but the first mate kind of doesn't. And he's kind of in the way of her plans, both because he's so charming, but also he just has a tendency to just get in the way. So it's basically about this. She has to get this thing that is on the ship, and there's a first mate who's just kind of getting in her business. And it's fun, it's charming, it's not necessary, it's fast-paced, but somehow I don't feel like the romance was too fast-paced either. Like, I don't feel like it was insta-love. Somehow it managed. I think the book is like 300 pages long, so it's a very short book. It's very, very quickly over with. I read it in a day. I basically read it in one sitting, I think. If not one, then 2, because I had to do some work as well. But I was just like, I was captured, completely captured by this. Could not stop reading. I was having the time of my life. I thought it was good. You know when you just find those like super easy to read, fun, fast-paced YA books? this is one of those. I just thought it was just good YA, you know? So if you're looking for something like that, but also with pirate, ow, my hand just cracked. So if you're looking for something like that, but also with pirates, and possibly with a little bit more than that, because our lead girl does also have some powers that we're not going to get into, but there's some magic. Could you call it magic? I'm going to call it magic. You know, I would highly recommend it because I thought it was great. I thought it was really good YA. I had a great time with it. Definitely looking forward to going into the sequel, which is called, I think, Daughter of the Siren Queen. So I'm gonna have to keep an eye for that one. I really want to read it. I've been wanting to read it since I finished that book. Just a nice, quick, easy to digest YA fantasy. Then we have our second last book, which was Loki by Melvin Burgess. I can't do names, like I just don't know how to do names. But anyway, this book is about, it's a retelling of different stories from Norse mythology, but they're all retold from Loki's point of view. So I'm not gonna get into the different stories, but it's basically like, don't think like short stories, because everything is nicely woven together. There's a timeline as well, but Loki is basically telling the stories of like creation of humans and also where he's ended up, and a lot of stuff in between, such as like how he got married and how he had his children. If you don't know, Loki had basically, there are three very important monster creatures in Norse mythology, and Loki is actually the father of those. So the story of how they came about also was retold. Some of them are more changed than others, but I also like, because it is a retelling, it's not just, you know, Loki's also not a part of these, some of these originally. Some of them he is, some of them he isn't, so he's kind of like placed himself in the middle of it, but I think it also fits with Loki because he's not supposed to be the most reliable of the gods, like he's the trickster, and he's also incredibly sarcastic, he's not necessarily the nicest, he has a little bit of a potty mouth. But I thought it was all very fitting to what I know of Loki as a character, as a mythological being. And when I saw this was up on NetGalley, I went for it because I'm Norse. I want to read some Norse mythology and I rarely ever come across any, so I thought it was fitting. And also Loki's awesome, like, not to be biased or anything, but my opinion pre-Marvel has also been that Loki has been my favorite. So you gotta remember that we grow up, at least I have grown up being told stories from Norse mythology, but also like watching different series. We have these like Christmas series during Christmas. Some of those have also been with like focus on Norse mythology and stuff. So it was, that's actually another point. It was funny seeing stories that I've learned through my childhood being retold to just be a little bit different, but also being reminded of some of them, such as the story where he turns into a horse, which I'm not gonna talk about in this video. Just one thing about this, like, maybe I am slightly biased because it is Norse mythology and I just, it's like, it's my country's history. I thought it was great, but just, it's not going to be for everyone. Like, I'm just gonna straight up say it's not going to be for everyone. It's weird. Norse mythology is a little bit up for interpretation. Like, not everything is fully fleshed out, not everything is fully explained. Some of it is incredibly strange. How does a mortal human woman give birth to a ginormous snake? Or I wouldn't call him a snake. A worm with a Y? Like, how does that happen? But that happened. So like, it is a little bit abstract, if you will, but I actually really enjoyed seeing some of those stories as well being interpreted in text in the book. So I don't know, I had a good time with it. I also thought Loki was a fun narrator. I can't remember how to pronounce that word right now, but although unreliable, important point, because he is unreliable. So, I don't know, I had a good time with it. I thought it was fun. Did it lose its pacing now and then? Maybe like a tiny bit to me, but call me a little bit biased. I just really enjoyed it because Norse mythology, so. And also favorite god. Yeah. I will say some stories were changed a lot more than the originals, and maybe it's just like a comfort, no, not a comfort thing, but maybe it's just like I've heard the story before, the original story, and I feel like you might have changed a little bit too much, but that might just be a personal thing. But that's the only thing I really have to add to it. And then also be aware of language, because in the Viking times, they did not, or actually don't know, did they swear in the Viking times? I could imagine them swearing, like I feel like, but at the same time, they were actually also quite like poised and stuff. I don't know, I felt like it was fitting, but there was a lot of swearing in it, so enjoyed it though. It was a good read. And then the last book that we're talking about is Cruel Illusions by Margie Fuston, which is a young adult fantasy. It's contemporary and it has to do with both magic but also vampires. And I went into this being told that it was going to be a little bit of a mix between Caraval by Stephanie Garber and also Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Didn't really live up to both, or either, I will say. But in this book, we follow our lead girl who is an orphan. So her and her brother have been living with foster families, are currently living with a mother and her son. And they've been living there for a little bit. Things are going great there, but our lead girl is very careful because let's just say the two kids have been burned before. Not literally, just figuratively. Yes, apologies, I accidentally moved my camera. Anyway, but another thing is as well that our lead girl is also very focused on, she wants revenge for her mother dying. So vampires have kind of been out in public in this book, in this universe, in this version of our world, but then disappeared very quickly after, so it's kind of believed that they're a hoax, but our lead girl knows that they're not because she actually saw that her mother was killed by a vampire. So she's very set on wanting revenge. She carries a wooden stake with her at all times, basically, just in case she comes across one. She's very will head first into danger if there's a vampire involved because she wants revenge. She hates vampires. And then there is the aspect with the magic. So there's a traveling group nearby that has a tent set up where they do magic, and our lead girl might have some secrets and is very fascinated with magic. Decides to go to the show. One of the guys there uses her as an assistant for a trick and then is come back tomorrow, we want to talk. So she goes back the next day, is basically invited into this secret society for magicians that also kill vampires. And she's I'll take it, I'll go, yes. And so the rest of the book is basically about this society, but also the vampires. There's a lot going on. I feel like this book wanted to do more than was there's here in front of my face. Okay. Than was necessary, to be honest. I was very intrigued because I love magic in books, first of all, but I also really love vampires, and I don't come across a lot of vampire books these days that I'm just it's one of the reasons I wanted to read A Dowry of Blood as well. I don't come across a lot of vampire books that aren't a little bit cliche, if you will. But also just in general don't come across a lot of vampire books. I feel like maybe they've been done a little bit. But we'll say the Buffy comparison didn't really do it for me because their girl is not... Buffy's badass, first of all, but she's also chosen. Our lead girl is not chosen. Is she badass at times? Yes, but she's also second guessing herself all the time. She's also incredibly indecisive. Will at times have to have others make the decisions for her, and I don't know, just very back and forth. Too much for me, personally. As for the Caraval comparison, I see the illusion magic, but at the same time, it felt more about, it was about the secret society instead of what Caraval is about. And I don't think you can make the comparison just because they have sort of the same kind of magic. They don't actually have the same kind of magic, it's not the same kind of system. Just because there's a traveling group of magicians does not make it the same, does not make it comparable, to me at least. So I wouldn't agree with that. It was neither of those two. And then there was the love triangle, and this was the kind of love triangle written that I just kind of know. I think one of the things about love triangles is that it goes back and forth between the two guys so much. It's too much. And also often when reading love triangles, I feel it's very obvious who that she's gonna end up with. Was I completely sure of it this time? No, but there was so much back and forth between them that I'm just girl, just pick one. Make up your mind. I can respect indecisiveness because I'm an indecisive person myself, but we're dealing with human beings here and or like relationships or whatever, and it's just I get annoyed by it. So that was a point that I did not like about it. And then it also, just because of a lot of repetitiveness and indecisiveness, it felt a little bit long drawn. So I didn't fully enjoy this. I was a little bit frustrated at times, but I really wanted to finish it at the same time. I also came for the vampires. I got some vampires, you know. Yeah, this feels like a sour note to end off on, but it was the last one on my list and I just kind of went through them, so you know. One day I'll find a vampire book that... I found you already. What am I saying? You're beautiful. Okay, anyway. So that was my reading month. I hope you enjoyed this wrap up. If you want to check out any of the books, they are always linked to in the description box down below to both Amazon but also Book Depository. Also want to note that they are affiliate links, which means that if you buy anything after clicking on the link, I do make a small commission. However, you can just check out the books. You don't have to buy them. Just want to very much like get that straight. You don't have to buy anything, okay? But if you want to read the synopses, you can find them through any of those links, pretty much. But yeah, overall, I feel like it was a good month. I just read a lot of arcs, and I didn't get to read a lot of the horror books. I am reading Into the Drowning Deep, though, which I am enjoying right now. So we'll be talking about that in the November wrap-up at the start of December. So I will be introducing just a little bit of horror in my November reading, but... yeah, I didn't get to read as many of my TBR books as I wanted to. But anyway, if you've read any of the books, let me know what you thought of them. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more videos like this from me, but also videos like bookish unboxings, TBR videos, readathons, and whatever else we do here on the channel, booktube stuff essentially, definitely consider hitting the subscribe button. But that's all I got for you guys today. So I hope you all enjoyed it, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.
Oh, you know you're beautiful.